Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Knits by Mandy. My name is Amanda and this is the 30th episode of the Knits by Mandy podcast. The podcast is officially 30, flirty, and thriving, and I'm really excited to share what I've been working on this past month with you all. I have this bright, cheery, finished object to talk about, my Amy sweater. I have progress on my Stella quilt blanket to share, and I've also started wedding knitting, which I can't wait to share with you all. So it'll be a fun episode. There's a lot to catch up on. I do have just like a few life updates. So over the last month, I celebrated my birthday, which I talked about in my last episode. I unfortunately was laid off of my full-time position, which has been really hard and disappointing and just a lot of big feelings to work through. I was not a federal worker, but I worked at a company that had various USAID contracts. So it's just been a really rough 3 months, 4 months watching the dissolution of that work happen, and it's thrown me in a little bit of an existential crisis, just like a little one. Part of me feels odd sharing it right now on this platform, but another part of me feels it's important to document and talk about what's going on. But this is my platform and this is where I can share about my life. And my mental health and things going in my life are very much intertwined with my knitting. They're not separate entities. Talked about it a little bit on my Instagram. It's just been a lot of big feelings to work through. Not only is getting laid off and losing your job hard, but this is a field I've worked in for the past 7 years. Some people I've seen who've worked 20 years in this field lose their jobs. And it's just a lot to take in, along with the everything else going on. All to say, check in on your friends, check in on your federal worker friends, just check in on your community. So many people have said to me, like, I don't even have words for you, and I'm like, I don't even have words for me either. So I think I'll just leave it at that. I feel like I've been able to channel some of this energy into my knitting. I was able to go on a trip with my fiance, which was really nice. Yeah, we're very much taking things day by day in our household right now, and that's kind of the best that you can sometimes do. And just sending like love and care to everyone watching. I feel like very kind of wrapped in what's going on in my life and our life right now, but I'm sure like it's affecting so many people in so many different ways. All that to say, I will have some extra time to be creating content, which I hope to do. I'd love to be kind of in a groove of posting more regularly, kind of feeding my creativity while I have this downtime, which I'm having a lot of hard times with the unstructured downtime. I thought it'd be really fun, but it's not as fun as I thought it was going to be. I've been more active over on Instagram. I've been posting Whip Wednesday videos. For a long time, I didn't really talk to the camera on that platform, but I'm kind of enjoying doing short form stuff and keeping you guys more updated more often than these monthly podcast episodes. So if you're interested, you can follow me over there. Yeah, let's get into the fun stuff, which is the knitting. My finished object and the item that I'm wearing is the Amy sweater by petiteknit. I am so excited to have this project off my needles. It has been a long time coming. I ordered this yarn in February of last year, so it feels really nice to have finally turned it into like the bright purple sweater of my dreams. Here's what the sweater looks like up close. As you can tell, it's a raglan construction. It has really nice neck decrease details, which I think are beautiful. The 2x2 rib with the little garter stitch edge. I just think it's quite lovely. And the bottom also has the 2x2 rib. I knit the size small on 4mm needles in Santa's Garn Pure Gynt. I believe this color is called Light Lilac, and it was a limited edition yarn. If you've been following my journey with this sweater and this yarn, I had major dye lot issues. I was gonna knit the Lanark sweater by Rebecca Clow in this yarn, and then I just like didn't have the mental capacity to do half fisherman's rib and like a zipper. And when I saw the Amy sweater pattern, I was like, that's another great use for this yarn. I cast it on in December during Vlogmas and was having dye lot issues. There was just like a big old line in the middle of the yoke right about here, and it was not something that you could look over. So I put the project in timeout. I picked it back up in January when it was frigid because I was like fantasizing about having this warm, cuddly sweater and a big turtleneck that I could like pull up if I really wanted to. I don't know if I would, but I was fantasizing about it. So I cast it back on in January, and I started doing helical knitting almost immediately when I joined in the round. You do start knitting the yoke flat to do some shaping for the neck, which I always appreciate. I think it helps your sweaters fit so much better. And I did helical knitting all the way down, helical knitting all the way through up until the cuffs on the sleeves. These were just with one color, and then I just did the neck in one color, and I think if you look closely you can see that it's a little bit lighter. I think this is the only place where there's a noticeable difference. If I get really close, maybe you can see. I don't know, like it's very close, and you can also kind of see there's a little bit of like vague striping, but I think with the way that it all, is there a line? There's a little bit of a line here actually, but with the way that it all came together, it didn't look as stark as it first did when I was knitting it, and I just kind of had to accept that there were like some discrepancies in this yarn. It was like maybe just a little variegated, even though that's not what I necessarily expected. When all is said and done, I'm really happy with how the yarns ended up blending together, and I don't mind a little bit of variegation here and there. I think it adds a lot of charm and a lot of like specialness and uniqueness to a hand knit sweater. I had a lot of doubts in multiple points through this sweater, especially when it came to knitting the sleeves. The yoke is pretty deep, like my armpit's like here, and this much is just yoke. I will say my row gauge was big, but even when I was looking like very closely at other project pictures of the Amy sweater, I noticed this steep raglan that I maybe didn't fully like consider when I was first looking at the sweater. I think I was really enraptured by like the neck and the cuffs and those other details that I didn't notice the depth of the raglan. So far, it's not bothering me. I was really worried about how big the sleeves were. These are like the biggest sleeves I've ever knit. I have my Harlow sweater by Kadri, and that has big sleeves with 2x2 ribbing, and I put them next to each other, and this one like was like 2 inches bigger than the Harlow sweater, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be bad. With the decreases and the 2x2 cuff, I feel like, there we go. I feel like it comes together nicely. It doesn't feel too big on my wrist. I know that can sometimes be a consideration for people. I would say if you like a tapered sleeve, you like a little sleeve, either knit this much smaller, like go down a few sizes, or just don't knit this one. It's probably not for you. And when I first even tried on this sweater after blocking, I was like, I don't like it. I think it looks weird, but it took me a day of just wearing it around the house to feel more comfortable in it. One thing I would change in the future is maybe the length of the torso. Right now, it's a pretty cropped length. It kind of pops down right below like my jean. You can't see. Right now, it kind of pops below my waistband on my jeans, like, but it doesn't go past my zipper. I usually like a more cropped length. It makes things feel more versatile to me in my closet. They can go with like a variety of options. You can put it over a dress or a skirt. However, if I want this to really be like the big cozy sweater in the frigid temps of winter, I might want this to come down a little bit lower on my back so it kind of fully covers my kidneys and kind of like I can kind of swim in it. I do have some yarn if I do want to extend the length. Right now, for the season we're in, it works. I was worried I wouldn't get a few days of wear out of it, but I have been able to wear it here and there. It's like 50 degrees here today, but it's like a cold 50 degrees. So it's like damp, you know? You know when the air just like feels colder? It's like, it's been like that the past week or so after we had some really nice warm weather. Overall, I'm very pleased with the final project. I feel like it's giving what I want it to give. I love the color. I'm just really happy with it. And I'm really just finally happy to be done knitting because I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels there for a little bit trying to turn this yarn into a sweater. Moving on to works in progress, I am chipping away on my Stella quilt blanket. This is the third square that I've worked on, and I think when we last checked in, I didn't have a lot of progress on this. The week that I got laid off, that weekend we went to Savannah because my fiance actually had a work trip, and I had already agreed to go down with him. I'd never been there. Thought it was a good chance to get away. It was a perfectly timed trip. It was lovely down there. I'll talk about it a little once I show you my acquisitions at the end. But I didn't want to bring my Amy sweater with me on the plane because I just had like a cuff to finish. So I brought my Stella quilt blanket. It was just what I needed to, I don't know, like calm myself down a little bit. I kind of talk about this, I feel like every time I show this pattern. I'll say it once and briefly. There's something so calm and meditative about working on this pattern that it just like puts my mind at ease, and I'm so glad that I have it. And I'm also really glad, on another note, that I bought all this yarn and collected it for a while because I don't really want to be spending a lot on yarn in the coming months if I'm not going to be employed, and so it's nice to have a lot of nice yarn kind of at the ready, and that I don't have to like, I don't know, I'm not in a yarn deficit anyway. Let's not be talking about trade deficits at this hour. All that being said, let me just show you how much progress I've made. Here it is. I'm very excited with how it's shaping up. I've been knitting it in these lovely blue colors that are just like unlike really any color I ever knit with. I'm not much of a blue girl, I don't know. I'm really enjoying how this one is coming together. Here's a closer look at some of the colors that are in here. These are all Sorella minis. I mostly have collected Sorella minis for this, but I also have some other ones. This one's from Sunday Fiber Co. She did a true colors collection last year. I didn't end up electing to work this one in because I felt like I put this on Instagram. So if you follow me over there, you can be in touch on these decisions. I was gonna put it on this one, and I felt like, or people pointed out that the saturation of this like doesn't really jive with the other ones. So I might just save this for a sock or some other project, or maybe another square down the line, we never know. And I opted for this color, which is actually from the book collection. I think this is the Funny Story colorway, which it's on my bookshelf right there. And it's, yeah, that one. I feel like we're all Funny Story vibes. Anyway, also this picture, I keep thinking it's a very old Walk the Moon album cover. Any of my indie pop girlies, you with me? I really hope the recession brings an indie pop resurgence if we have to live through one. That would be amazing. I mean, it wouldn't be amazing, but like, indie pop, I'm ready when you are. Anyway, okay, jokes aside, that is the progress so far. When I finish this one, I'll either be 1/3 of the way done or 1/4 of the way done. I feel like I want to do a 12 square blanket and just like do it big, go big or go home. I like just fantasize about being cuddled up under the couch on this blanket. My cat loves sitting on these squares, and I have one like on my chair in the office, and I always find her sitting on it, and I'm too sensitive to take it away from her. So it's gonna be covered in cat hair by the time I sew it into the blanket, but whatever. All right, I'm gonna put her away for now. Hopefully I can finish this within the next week or two. I do want to give you a preview of the colors that I want to start next with. So this is the next palette I'm looking at. It is like light Kelly greens, kind of turquoises and bright yellow greens. If I want to do the motif I'm knitting right now, I definitely have enough colors, but if I want to do the 8-pointed star, I would need one more because this is 7. So I could go back to the drawing board. I could also look at the scraps that I have for my, like, I did the bluish greenish one. I could probably pull in some scraps from there, or I can just like look at what I have in my stash. But oh, I think I have a sock yarn also that could go really well with this. For these colors, would you do the Ohio star or the 8-point star? I still need to kind of make up my mind. I'm leaning towards the 8-point one, but you never know. We'll see. And my other question is, would you like to see Stella Quilt vlogs? I started doing one and then I was like, is this boring? I'm not sure if this is what people want to see. But now I have more time on my hands. So if that's something you'd be interested in, let me know and I can like restart the vlog. I've just been kind of like putting it off because I don't know. There's only so many different times I can show you knitting the same squares over and over again. So let me know if you'd be interested. If not, that's fine. But these are the colors that are coming up next. While we're talking about the Stella Quilt blanket, I'll briefly talk about the one yarn acquisition I have. And I bought this when I was in Savannah, which, lovely town. Lovely people, great food, beautiful. I like sat in Forsyth Park at the cafe in Forsyth Park, and I had a little mocktail and a little Caesar salad. What's going on outside? I had a little girl date for myself. It was great. I had a lovely time. Of course, while I was on a trip, I had to hit up the local yarn store and check it out, which is called the Frayed Knot, and had a lovely time there. And I ended up picking up just some Madeline Tosh, which I felt like kind of basic about, but I went in there knowing I wanted a yellow yarn to kind of round out my Stella Quilt blanket yarn collection. I have reds, I have oranges, but I don't really have any yellow yarns. The motif that I just shared and just showed you is also really good for using up single skeins of fingering weight yarn, and I figured Perfect. This is the Madeline Tosh sock yarn. They say it's a sock yarn. There isn't any nylon in this, which isn't super important for my purposes, but I would imagine important for your socks. But it's in this colorway called Winter Wheat, and it's just so pretty. I love it. So that will also kind of go into the queue for the Stella quilt blanket to round out my rainbow palette of colors. In my last video, I talked about starting knitting for my wedding, which is very exciting, and I wanted to get a jump on it. I'm getting married in October and like just wanted to get ahead. And I also knew I wanted to make like a lot of fingering weight things, so those take more time. The one project I've been so sure I wanted to knit is the Ophelia top by Tamara from Star-Crossed Knits. It is a fingering weight top. I've talked about it in my last video, in my bridal knits video. We don't have to go into it. It's Gorgina. I love it. And I want to wear it for my rehearsal dinner / welcome drinks. Anyway, I started it. This is the back panel. Do you see it? Do you see it? Very exciting. I famously have a lot of issues predicting my gauge with finer yarns and smaller needles. I just always do. My gauge swatches are just never accurate. They're always much tighter than how I end up knitting. And so I've done a few things to help remedy this issue. The last fingering weight project I did successfully was my mixed rib cami by Florence Miller. And the way that I like determined what size needle and to use and what size to knit was I cast on the bust amount onto my needle and then I just pulled it around my bust and saw how it fit. That top is a little bit different because it is stretchy and you have just like a little bit more room there with the ribbing. This one, I want to be pretty precise and good about. I did the same method. I cast it on the size smaller, so I'm knitting the size small even though my measurements would suggest knitting the size medium. And I also knitted on a needle size, like I think 2 sizes smaller. This is a 2.25. And it's also the needle that I used for the big mixed rib cami. This is the smallest needle I have. I think my back is a little bit broader than this. I'm not sure how much broader. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna treat this panel as a big swatch. We'll have a better idea of if I'm on the right track or not. I just started doing the armhole increases. I'm going to finish doing that and then just do a block and kind of see where that puts me, see how much this grows, and hopefully then, since I'm working with like a bigger area that's like actually part of the project, I'll have a better idea of how the finished piece is going to fit. I have not worked fully in pure silk. I have tried and failed, and so I definitely want to be like more diligent with this project. I want this to look a certain way and like fit a certain way. I definitely love the neutral ease and how it just kind of like grazes over your curves, and I just want that effect and I want it to look how I'm envisioning it. When I'm knitting things like sweaters, I can always kind of like do a little give and take, but because this is one, I think with more neutral negative or like neutral ease, I just think your margin for error is just a little bit different. So that's the plan with this. I haven't fully gotten there yet, but once I do that, I will go ahead and block this. I have to say, I do love the fabric of how the pure silk knits up. It is so lovely. It's really nice. The pattern's very detailed and it offers you a lot of accommodations and modifications if you want to adjust your bust size. I haven't gotten there yet, but there's a lot of shaping options for you if you want that really well-fitting, like tailored to you look. That is the Ophelia top by Star-Crossed Knits. I hope to have a lot more progress on this next time I see you. I do have one more thing, which was actually a gift. In the winter, I knit the Oi with the Poodle's Cow from the Gilmore Girls knitting book for my aunt. Last week, she sent me a little knitting gift, a little thinking of you gift, which I thought was very sweet. And I just wanted to share it with you all because it's a gadget that I have never purchased for myself, but I've always been like really curious about it. I always just try to like stave that impulse purchase off for whatever reason. And it is a neck lamp. A neck knitting lamp or like a reading lamp. And if you haven't seen one of these before, it goes around your neck like so. And the way that it matches my sweater perfectly, like the way that everyone has my number and knows this is my favorite color, I appreciate it. And then it has, and then it has, they get brighter too, which is nuts. So I'm really excited about this gadget. I've been wanting one. I think with something so fine like the fingering weight, it's going to be really helpful in the winter. This would be great when you don't have as much daylight. And if you're anything like me, the big light is your ultimate op. It's your ultimate like antagonist, and you hate having the big light on. So this is great if you don't want to strain your eyes, but you also don't want to have the big light on because it's evil. So anyway, I think this was from Amazon. This isn't like the one that's branded as a knitting lamp. I think this one is it's called that. Not sponsored. That's just a fun little gadget. I will report back. The only thing I'm worried about is that it creates shadows, especially at night. And if you ever had a cat, you know they kind of go nuts for that. So I think I'd have to use it when my cat is not feeling squirrely. Otherwise, like, it's gonna be like me and her in the Thunderdome, basically. In a funny way, not in a violent way. Anyway, I would never do that. So that is just my little gift knit acquisition, which I'm very pleased with, and thank you to my aunt. Do we know what time it is now? It is the media review section. Let's get into it. I would love to talk about a little bit of reality TV and a little bit of White Lotus. Are we down? I'm down. So let's talk about Summer House. It's one of my favorite non-housewives reality television shows. Used to follow 20-somethings, 30-somethings on their weekend trips to the Hamptons, and now all of those people have kind of grown up, and it still kind of follows them. They kind of circulate in fresh meat every new season and kind of like see how they do. And it's also just a very great case study of average men terrorizing beautiful young women, which I hate. I hate to see it, but I'm gonna watch it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the gist of these Bravo shows. And something I want to talk about specifically with Summer House is how people on Bravo, particularly men of Bravo, operate in a post-Scandival world. Send me to grad school so I can do my thesis on this. So we have to rewind, look back at the ancient texts, if you will. Look back to 2 years ago when Tom Sandoval cheated on his longtime life partner girlfriend Ariana Madix with a mutual friend. It was the drama heard around the world. I think it was a lot of people's entry into not only Vanderpump Rules but like the Bravo universe. It caused so much like national attention. It was wild. Tom Sandoval was like raked through the mud. His reputation and just like his business and everything was just like completely kind of destroyed. I'm not really a proponent of like harassing reality television people online. I think if you do that, like, please get a hobby. Like, please start knitting. You need to find some peace if you're harassing people in their comment sections, genuinely. Nevertheless, the internet is the internet, and it happened. Now we have a world where people are obviously still operating in the Bravo-verse. There's even like new eyes on it. I think a lot of the men are feeling a bit of pressure. They don't want to become Tom. They don't want to be another Scandival. And I think it ties into how West has acted on the show and how Craig has acted in the Paige and Craig breakup. And again, we have to go back in history for just a second to last season of Summer House, where West and Jesse Solomon were new male characters onto the show, which was important. Like, we needed a new like infusion of men into Summer House. They like can't get men cast to stick around. Love or hate them, like you kind of need them. West and Sierra really hit it off. Sierra is like gorgeous. West is like cute, and he kind of like captured the attention of many people in the early seasons. Like, if people were like, oh, who's this guy? He kind of seems like in touch with his emotions, like da 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 da. People like liked the short king. We were all buying it for a little bit until the fame kind of got to him. He kind of ended up leading her on. They broke things off, and she eviscerated him at the reunion, and he was kind of like, and I think because, you know, these men, you can tell now they're so scared of becoming like the victim or becoming the Tom Sandoval. And now it's creating this like non-storyline, I feel like, this season, where West's like, is Sierra gonna say hi to me? Da, da, da. I don't really think Sierra like needs to be nice to you, especially after you did have a whole New York Times article being like, I didn't really like her. Like, if a guy did that to me, I also would be like, to you. There's no other way around that. Additionally, I feel like we're also seeing that in the Paige DeSorbo, Craig Conover breakup of it all. Paige on Summer House was dating Craig for about 3 years. These two people could not be more different, in my opinion, and I'm not a Southern Charm girly. I was never initiated into it. I haven't watched the early seasons, but like I know enough to know that if you're a man on Bravo, you cannot be treating women that well. That's just a rule. It's like a prerequisite for being on Bravo. Name one non-housewife Bravo man that you would like introduce your daughter to. I'm waiting. Exactly. I don't need to watch Southern Charm to like know what's up. So the breakup starts out normal enough where Paige announces it on a podcast, but then Craig kind of makes this like weird video where he's like, it came out of nowhere. He also didn't deny rumors that Paige wasn't cheating. And it became very messy very quickly. And there's been this divide in discourse online between Southern Charm and Summer House fandoms. Southern Charm about people in Charleston, vaguely. Summer House about the people in New York. One side is very pro Paige and one side is very pro Craig. I'm sure you could guess which one is which. And there's so many, like, this is another case I think of a man who was very afraid of becoming a Tom Sandoval-like creature. I don't know why I said creature. But a Tom Sandoval-like person, character, I think is the word I'm looking for. He like immediately basically tried to garner sympathy and favor through the breakup. So it's just kind of interesting to see how these people kind of posture themselves either in the media or on their own social media to kind of like sway the public opinion. I'm sure like this sometimes would come into play post Sandoval, but it feels much like stronger and more apparent, and it more so feels like you're watching people kind of like move their chess pieces around. I don't really have like that strong of opinions over like who's better, Craig or Paige. I just think they were two people that weren't right for each other. And I think it's actually a very relatable thing to love someone but like not be compatible with them, or like be in a relationship that you know maybe isn't gonna work, but it's hard to cut off. Things aren't always so cut and dry in life, and of course a lot of that nuance gets lost in the online discourse where you have what I'm viewing as like Facebook moms defending Craig and like the younger millennial Gen Z. Is Gen Z watching Summer House set defending Paige? One, it's an interesting thing to watch in a post-Sandoval world. It's also interesting how the demographics have split in between the fandoms and like who's defending who. Again, I don't have that strong opinions. And again, I think if you're leaving mean comments in reality TV shows, and again, I think if you're leaving mean comments and writing paragraphs of discourse around how Paige and Craig treated each other and vice versa in their comment section, like, start knitting, please. Like, please start doing something else with your time. The thing about reality television and why I love it so much is it's a mirror. It is a mirror to who we are as a culture, to what we value, to what we believe. Good time to be looking in the mirror, America. Am I right or am I wrong? Those are my thoughts on Summer House and living in a post-Sandoval world. I want to talk about the White Lotus finale for just a little bit. I loved the White Lotus finale. I really wasn't sure mid-season where this was going. I definitely feel like the full moon party episode was a tipping point for this season, but I so much enjoyed the performances by like all of the actors. I thought it was a fantastic cast. I'm having a real big Walton Goggins moment. Guilty as charged. I think that man is so fine. My fiance knows it's okay, but like I've been really enjoying him, and then also in Righteous Gemstones. I just think that Mike White is a genius, and I feel like I understand everything that he does, and I want to understand it, you know? I thought that Carrie Coon's monologue in the last episode was so moving, and I'm obviously not in my 40s yet, but I just feel like they captured the intricacies and the nuances of a long time female friendship so well, especially like they summed it up so well in that last monologue. I really appreciated that. I think the darkness surrounding Rick and Chelsea and how Rick like just couldn't escape and let go of his suffering was a big point of the season. I like was happy with the ending. It's like obviously sad that Rick and Chelsea died, but I think it just makes sense. I thought Belinda's ending was interesting and just speaks, I think, to the points that Mike White is trying to make through all of the White Lotus episodes of how money affects, how money brings power and affects how you interact with other people and how you view yourself and how you operate. And finally, the rat lifts. I wish I could see what happened afterwards. I know it's almost kind of like, you leave the viewer wondering like what, I don't know, what the rest of that boat ride was like. What was their flight like home? Like what happens to him? How do they get by? I guess we'll never know. But I've just been loving to do Parker Posey's North Carolina accent all around the house. I just really enjoyed White Lotus, and let me know what you thought of the finale. And I think we'll end here. So I've been filming for an hour. We love to see it, and I hope to see more of you soon here. Thanks so much for tuning in. I truly appreciate it, and I hope to see y'all soon. Bye!